Filming in Lagos, God. We have so many stories. And so you pay all this money, you get a permit, and that should allow you, film anywhere in the city, right? Wrong. We call them area boys, we call them our monile, whatever they are. Like, it's terrible. Have you seen that shot of the little helicopter that's like, it's a toy helicopter, but then they tried to make it look like it was a real, like, no, we don't want to do things like that. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk with Ted. I hope you guys enjoyed the first ep. It was quite a good time. I mean, it was quite fun filming that episode. Recapping everything, recapping my journey and all of that. My journey. Every time I say my journey, I'm just like, God. It's only been 10 years, girl. You got like a long road ahead. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please make sure you subscribe. We are here in the beautiful S.E.A Experience, which is a gorgeous boutique hotel and concept store in Lekki Phase 1. If you haven't been there, you need to check it out. Their rooms are super comfy. They've got a fantastic concept store with very, very cool clothes. And it's a great space in general to eat, have a drink. It smells great. Like, there's not many places you walk into in Lagos that, it has this smell, very, very nice. You just kind of want to chill and just like do nothing all day, or even work. Like, I'm right here, right now. I just kind of want to bring my laptop out and give them some, a light script, one or two. Yeah, so thank you, S.E.A Experience, for letting me film in your space. And I guess we'll get into the next app. What are we talking about today? As you know, I am a filmmaker. I have filmed on the streets of Lagos for 10 years now. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about, is the ins and outs of filming in a city like Lagos. When you have people come into our space, our city, who are filmmakers, they can't seem to wrap their head around how we manage to do what we do. So for you young filmmakers out there who are not really sure how to, get going, or, maybe you have a shoot coming up and you're not really sure how to get some things done, or you need some advice, this episode is for you, because I'm going to try and touch on some of the, the things that we deal with as filmmakers filming in Lagos. Yeah, so, if there's one thing that you need to film in this city is money, okay? Because you step out of your house, and once that camera comes out, the bills come out. So, you can't just go out there thinking, oh, you know what, let me just try and talk to these people or convince these people that I can film there. Maybe in some areas. And I wouldn't say that I am the most experienced person when it comes to filming all over the city or all over Nigeria. But as far as Lagos is concerned, I have seen some things. And so, it gets really expensive, So first of all, I would say the first thing you need to do is get a Lagos State permit. Yeah, fine. You need a permit, and you would think that this permit will permit you to shoot anywhere in Lagos, because really that's the way it should work, right? You go to the office. I can't remember what office it is. There's a film office. You go there, you apply for your permit, you get it approved. I think it's like 250K, 300K, depending on how big your production is. It could be more. So you pay all this money, you get a permit, and that should allow you, film anywhere in the city, right? Wrong. Because it's not just about this permit, okay? Once you want to film in Lagos Island, for example, I watch films like, I'm going to have Jade on here soon, because we just have some questions to ask. When you film a show like Gangs of Lagos, or, you film... even when we filmed my mom's film, Iyawomi, in Lagos Island, you pay a lot of money, not to the police, not to a film board, but to the guys on the street. We call them area boys, we call them our monile, whatever they are. You pay them money. And their eyes have opened so wide now, you don't just pay them chicken change. So it's really important that before your shoot, you try and go to this area, whether you have a locations manager. If you don't have a locations manager and it's you going out there to, secure a certain location, you have to make sure that you go and find the oga of that street or the oga of that area, right? And you pay them. Even with these payments, it is very possible that that money doesn't trickle down to the people, to the other people on the street. So I just finished a shoot a few months ago in the OFOEGBU area, okay? And my thought was, okay, we're filming on the mainland. It's not going to be as crazy as filming in Aja because, Aja, sometimes it gets a little wild with the area boys. They always demand a lot of money. They're expensive. They're expensive thugs to settle. And you think, oh, you don't want to bribe anyone, no corruption. You must bribe to be able to get your shoots done. That is the reality that we face as filmmakers here. So I thought, okay, you know what, let's go to the OFOEGBU area. In fact, I first said SHEDRACH. Let's go to SHEDRACH, but the locations, they were too expensive. So we ended up in the OFOEGBU area. Okay, now no problem. I thought, okay, with the locations manager, she has sorted out X amount of people. When we get there, we shouldn't have any issues. Ha, ha, ha. No, no, no. We get there, and I guess the guy that first collected the money did not share the money with everybody. That guy is not the real oga of the street. There are other ogas of the street, and he did not pay them. So we're there on the road trying to film on the streets. It's like it's a very small community. There's a market, there's a local betting shop. Everybody there knows everybody. And once you bring your cameras out, they're like, okay, something is going down here. So these guys run onto the set. They're like, no, they must get paid. Me, I try not to get involved because, as you can hear me, I know I'm a Niger girl, but once they hear or see me, then they feel that maybe there's millions somewhere that I'm keeping for, to pay these area boys. So I try not to involve myself in the dealings of these guys. So you have the locations guy, the locations girl, you have my producers who are now talking to these guys, and these guys, when you see them, they look scary. Like, they are scary guys. And you don't want to mess, you don't want to piss anyone off, you don't want to get anyone upset because next thing your camera is broken, next this, that. I'm sure you've even seen videos of Tony Abraham when she's fighting the area boys. People get into situations with these guys. So I'm like, look, I'm not really trying to cause a ruckus here and, anyone gets hurt or anyone gets into a fight. But at the end of the day, we need to shoot. So eventually, we have to bring out more money for these guys. Even after paying someone that we should have been settled for that whole week, we bring more money out to settle these guys. So if there's any piece of advice I can give you for filming in Lagos, pad up your pockets. Make sure you have cash to give out, because don't worry, it doesn't have to be cash. It can be transferred. They collect transfer. So make sure you got the money, and make sure you have people on your team that can give them one or two. Don't just be having, you have to have people that, do they speak Yoruba, whether they speak Pidgin, whether they speak Yoruba, whether they speak whatever they speak. Make sure you have guys that can fight on your team for you, because if you can't fight, you must have somebody that can fight for you. Okay, so that is something that I would say, because it got to the point where my DOP, my sound guy, everybody is there. Oh, they are all talking to the area. I'm like, hey, God. You don't worry. Look, watch this video, guys. You can see them in a crowd right now. You can see what they are doing there. They are haggling on how much we're going to pay. We're here on the streets. Day in the life of a Nigerian filmmaker. Well, a filmmaker filming in Lagos. So, if there's one piece of advice I will give you, that is a piece of advice, okay? So, as much as you need your permit from Lagos State in case you run into any police, You can definitely show your permit to the police and they'll let you go, especially if it's late at night and you're like, oh, you're coming from set, you show them your permit and you don't really want to give the police any money because why? You can bring your permit out, you show them, okay, they'll probably let you go, okay? So you definitely need your permit, as well for people like last mile or whoever, because sometimes maybe you need to block a road or you need to stop traffic and, you haven't exactly like gone to the last mile office to say, oh, you're shutting down a whole road. But if you're on the streets filming and any kind of Lagos state official comes to ask questions, you definitely need to have a permit. So make sure you do that. Cha-ching, money, money, money. Okay? So aside money, you need money for everything. You need money to run your production in general. But as Nigerians, we all know the issues we face with electricity, right? So if you are just starting out as a filmmaker, you're not really sure, okay, you have lights, okay, maybe the location you're going to film in, they have a generator, okay, and so you think you're good. Wrong, you're not good. You need your own gen. And, of course, hopefully you are speaking to an experienced gaffer or an experienced DOP that has advised you, okay, if with these lights that you want to use, whether, you need a certain type of generator. If you're using smaller lights that don't maybe carry that much, or you have LED lights that don't need, that don't carry that much, then you can use a smaller gen. If you have big HMIs and, you have all these fancy lights, I'm assuming if you have fancy lights, then you know what you're doing, right? Then you need a big gen. So this last production I filmed on, this is the first time that I've been on a production where we've used a smaller generator. The one that makes noise, the papa gen, not the silent gen, okay? And this was an interesting experience because obviously your generator has to be far away from your set. And so you got to make sure you have the cables. So I've been in situations where, we have the gen, but we don't have the cables, and so you need to make sure that whoever you've hired to run your generator, to run your light system, your gen and all that, they have rented the correct cables for you so that when you're filming, you're not hearing one loud generator outside your window and then your sound guy is saying you don't have good sound and then you need to do ADR and all of that. So running your gen or knowing what gen you're using is really important. You can decide, you know what, I'm going to use the gen of the, the house or the location that, they've provided a gen. Sometimes those generators aren't calibrated, right? So you could have your lights plugged in and then you see that the lights are flickering when the camera, you can't see with your blind eye, but on camera you see that the lights are flickering. So these are all things that, if you want to just make any film and say, okay, you just want to put it on YouTube and the lighting is somehow cool, you can do that. But if you want to give them fresh, hot, sexy, high quality content, these are the little things that I think you need to consider when you're filming in Lagos. And a lot of people that come in to Nigeria don't understand these things. So, they'll be like, we'll just, light is an issue. And make sure you have fuel. If you are burning your midnight candle and it's 1 a.m. and you don't have any more fuel and you still have to shoot, that means that set is wrapped. So make sure there's somebody in there checking where your fuel is, checking where your diesel is, making sure you have enough to run you through to the end of your shoot. Because unfortunately electricity is a problem in this country. And make sure you budget enough diesel and fuel. I've run into situations where we've gone way over on diesel and fuel because we basically underestimated how much we would use. And so I think it's really important to be realistic when you are planning a shoot. As much as you want to save money, as much as you don't want to spend this money, you have to be realistic about how much you're going to spend. Otherwise, you run into issues. Next thing you know, it's midway through production, you finished your diesel money and you don't have any more left. And so what are you going to do? This is Lagos. You need money to shoot. I mean, you need petrol, you need diesel to shoot. I was having a conversation recently with some producers and directors, producers, filmmakers from S.E.A. And we were telling them about our accommodation issues, right? So when I say accommodation issues, we have a crew of, whether it's 30 people, 40 people, 50 people, and we have to accommodate everyone to be able to be on time and be on schedule to complete our shoots, and they could not wrap their heads around it. These are guys from S.E.A., maybe the UK, the US, where, you know, there's roads, there's trains, there's buses, there's all kinds of ways that you can get to set. So, you know, accommodating your crew for 6 weeks is just unheard of. Like, who does that? Except you are filming in a forest somewhere, or, you know, you're filming, some desert island where, of course, you have to accommodate. But you're filming in a city, right? A bustling city like Lagos, and you have to accommodate your entire crew because everyone lives in different parts of the country, in different parts of the state, and you cannot determine what traffic is going to be like that day. So when you are budgeting that budget, I suggest you budget in accommodation. Of course, like, if you can't, maybe there's ways around it. Maybe you shoot from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Or maybe you shoot from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Because by that 11 p.m., you're going to have people that can't go home because it's too late. So these are the issues that we run into filming big productions in Lagos. It's accommodation. Any big production that you have seen, the crew are accommodated. Maybe they shoot one scene from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Then everybody can go home. But there's absolutely no way you can shoot a whole film that is 90 minutes in Lagos with a decent sized crew and not accommodate them, unless you're planning on spending double the amount that you're already spending. So I would say this is something to consider. Obviously, if you're just starting out and you're filming maybe a short film and it's 2 or 3 days and your schedule isn't that tight. Obviously, with a short film, maybe you have some allowances, but I filmed a short film recently. Well, not recently, almost 2 years ago now. And we had to accommodate everyone for the 4 days that we filmed. And it was hard because you're trying to shoot so much in such little time that we were shooting into the night some nights. So when you have people not able to go home, you still have to find a way to accommodate them. Are they going to sleep in the car? Are they going to sleep on the road? You have to make your crew comfortable. So I would say finding accommodation is very important. Another shout out to anybody that has money. Look, if you want to build some hostels or like a crew hotel of some kind, you can make a lot of money. Let me just tell you that now, because there are crews that are constantly filming in this city. And if you're able to create, build accommodations, good accommodation for crew that's at a good price, because price is a factor. Yes, there's many hotels in Lagos, but who wants to pay 40, 50K per room times, 30 rooms? That is your whole production budget gone, right? So we need you guys to come invest in affordable accommodation for film crews in Lagos. I tell you, there's money to be made there. So if you're into hospitality of some kind, or into construction, or you just have money that you want to spend, I would suggest that's where you spend it. So a funny story linked to this generator thing. So it's the first day of Royal Hibiscus Hotel, the first day of shoot. And we have this gen that comes on set and we're trying to start rolling and it doesn't start, guys. The gen doesn't start. First day of shoot, I cried because my mom, who I might refer to as MA sometimes, she was like, how would you guys not have a backup generator? This is Nigeria. You must have a backup gen. That day, guys, I don't think we filmed. We lost 8 hours or 9 hours that day. I had to now call these guys that do events to bring a gen from Surulere to come. And then even when that gen even came, it didn't even start as well. Something had to happen to it. They had to do something to it before the generator started. And we were filming in this old building in Lagos Island. Like, that place does not have lights. They've not had lights for, I don't know, many, many years. So there was no gen even on ground that we could even try and borrow. And it was a Sunday. I don't think I've ever cried so much. I was so upset because, the first day of shoot, you want to get things going, you want things to go well, and it did not go well at all. We lost 8 or 9 hours, and we definitely paid for it. I think we had to add an extra day to the shoot, and it was just horrible. So even if you have a gen, maybe think of having a backup gen because... without lights, you can't shoot unless you're exterior, which maybe you might be able to get away with. But yeah, electricity is a big thing. So make sure you think about that. And another thing I would say, locations. So, when you watch a movie and these guys are from a rich family and you've seen the house and then you see that same house in 20 other films, locations are a big problem for us in this place. We just can't, we just don't have access to fine locations. And I don't really know what the solution is. Sometimes you have to go and beg a friend of a friend, beg your friend's dad, beg your friend's uncle, beg your friend's auntie to film in their place. And then when you get there, there's all these rules. There's a famous house, guys. This is a very famous house. I will not say where it is or what it is because then, we're all going to know the house. But if you're a filmmaker in Lagos, you probably know this house. And this house is owned by a really interesting person. And the rules and regulations to film in this house are just insane. And you go in there and it's very famous. Like, you've seen this particular house in a lot of films. And you go into this house and you're just like, why am I paying all this money to film here? Because you have to bring in portaloos, you have to bring in portable toilets to film in that particular house because there is no toilet available in the whole house for the crew to use. So you have to bring in portable toilets. Okay? There's certain work you have to do in the house. There's certain things you have to do. So it's really just unfortunate that we don't have access to fine locations because, audiences and people that watch our films will be the first to say, this movie is not even fine. This one, compared to S.E.A. S.E.A. have fine locations. Have you seen some of the houses? They're just mansions sitting in Johannesburg, in Cape Town. Nobody living in them. Beautiful landscapes, gorgeous places. And they are ready to rent at affordable prices, but in recent years, the prices of locations have skyrocketed because, I don't want to say whose fault it is. It's probably us filmmakers, probably the music video guys, they pay a lot of money to rent nice locations to film in. And then you go and you find out the prices of some of these places and you're like, am I really going to pay 2 million naira per day to film in this place? Or am I really going to pay 3 million? Some people will say 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. Because you want to rent a nice place to film a mansion in, And when you even think about it, how many nice mansions are there in Lagos to film in? where people don't live in them, you know. So it's really hard finding great locations. If you, I would advise to stay away from writing too rich or writing too fancy, because sometimes you write yourself into a problem. You write yourself into a big problem. Now you need to go find this really nice location. Now you need to go find this really nice hotel. Now you need to find this really nice restaurant, you know, and these are the places that cost you the most. You know, we shot this really great series where we got to film in the Marriott. But it came at a price, you know, and unfortunately, even if you want to ask for a discount, even when they discount you, it's still expensive, you know. So, of course, you know, these are only things that you can do when you are part of a big production company who have the kind of money, you know, to pay for some of these locations. So, as an aspiring young filmmaker, I would advise you write as relatable as possible, as down to earth as possible, you know, and save your money for that one big fancy scene, you know, even things like parties where you're like, oh yeah, there's a wedding, and you know, she walks down the aisle and there's all these flowers, and look, I've done it before. I did it in the night of 2005. I was like, yeah, we're going to be on this farm. We're going to be in Ekpe. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. We went to Ekpe, and it cost us a fortune. It cost us a fortune to film in Ekpe. We had to film on the way to Ekpe. Okay, so call time, first day of shoot, 7 a.m. We get to the location, the meeting point. We're supposed to film all these road scenes. Another point, cars, guys. Try and avoid cars, because they cost money too. And also, you think a car scene should take like 5 minutes. It takes forever to film car scenes. So, back to the story. We get to the location. There was an issue with the car. Anyway, eventually, we get the car. We rig the car. You know, you need certain equipment to film car scenes. So you rig the car. We get on the roads. We start filming. You know, we're going round, filming. It's fine. It's going fine. But with car scenes, you have to stop, check the shot. Does the shot work? Okay, it works. Now let's change the setup. We want a different angle. You want this angle. If you're trying to film Hollywood style in Lagos, in cars, it's going to take you some time. And time is money. So we do all of that. And then now, okay, we want to film going to Ekpe because, you know, I want to tell a story, right? She's on a journey to this beautiful farm in Ekpe, right? So we want to see her journey there. To go from Ikoyi, you cross over the Ikoyi Link Bridge. We cross over the Ikoyi Link Bridge. We did it once, we did it twice. The third time, we get stopped. There's a guy on the bridge that says, oh no, you need a permit to film on the bridge. Not the Lagos State permit, a different permit from the LCC guys, that to film on the bridge is not just a Lagos State permit. You need a separate permit that costs you more money. Okay. So now we're talking to the guys, they're telling us we need to pay this, we need to pay that. And I'm like, why should I pay anything? Anyway, we end up paying, I think, a little bit of money. And we made our way. At this point, I'm just like, you know what? Let's just start going to Ekpe, because it's already 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock or something. Let's just start going to Ekpe. When we get closer to Ekpe, we'll pick up the shots. We get there, we pick up more shots of the road. Anyway, we ended up getting to the farm around maybe 7 or 8 p.m. And I think we shoot some more scenes as well on the farm. And the unfortunate thing is when you get into edit and you start editing and, you know, you start looking at, okay, my first cut of my film that I got was over 2 hours long. So I had to cut a lot out. And unfortunately, Those car scenes were some of the first to be cut out. The ones that took the longest. So my advice is, unless the car is integral to your story, unless the road is integral to your story, I'm saying you cannot tell the story without that car ride. Try and avoid it. As an aspiring as a young filmmaker, if you have the backing of a big studio behind you, and you have the money and you have the gear and you have, the big production behind you to support you, do it. But if you're an independent filmmaker just trying to, my advice would be to avoid things like that, because when you get to when you get to the edits and you get to what is really important in telling this story, those are usually the things that fall to the wayside. Those are usually the things that you get rid of. And, it's really sad, it's really unfortunate, but that's just the reality, So yeah, back to locations. Picking locations, I think you need to be smart with picking locations in Lagos. As much as, we want to tell some really big stories, sometimes you find like the most intimate stories are usually the best. And I think it's important as well to write that way. Of course, they say, don't write, don't limit yourself when you write and all of that. But unfortunately, in Lagos, those are some of the things that we have to do. You have to be intentional about the kind of stories that you want to tell. And sometimes you have to have a producer's hat on or a financer's hat on when you are writing those stories, because there's nothing worse than a great story that is executed poorly. Or that it's just not right because you couldn't afford the right location, or you couldn't afford the right decor, or you couldn't afford the right VFX. Think about it. He gets shot, then there's blood, then his head busts open, and then you see the shot and there's barely any blood, or you don't have enough money for the gunshot shots, or you write a werewolf into your story and the VF is terrible. Have you seen that shot of the little helicopter that's is a toy helicopter, but then they tried to make it look like it was a real, no, we don't want to do things like that. So my advice would be, write simple stories, write character-driven stories, because those are the ones that really hit home. When you see some of the most interesting films on YouTube or online, some of them are purely character driven. It's not about the glitz and the glam and all of that. It's really about the characters, and it's about the dialogue, and it's about the intimacy you feel when you watch these guys when you watch these films. So that would be my advice. Okay. Yeah, so being a filmmaker in Lagos is hard. Aside, you've gathered your money, you have your story, and then you go out there and you try and film, and all kinds of things come up. You can even get into locations and they tell you, sorry, we can't film here today for whatever reason. And it's important for you to have your agreement signed, be clear. Don't go based on just verbal agreements. Have your signed location agreements, have your signed crew agreements, have everything in a row, because anything can happen and you really just want to protect yourself. I think it's important to keep your crew happy. It's important to keep your crew well fed, water, food, accommodated, because these are the guys that will come hard for you when things get hard. Okay. When you're down 14 hours and, you still have 5 more scenes, if you have a crew that are not big fans of yours, they will not do what needs to be done. So it's important for you to treat people well. I mean, I think generally it is, but more importantly with your crew, because these are the guys that are going to come hard for you when things get hard. And just keep good spirits on, keep good spirits on set. It's really hard when people are yelling and, like, I promise you, I used to be a yeller. There was a point where that's all I used to do is yell, yell, yell. But I quickly learned that it doesn't really do anything. If anything, it gives people a headache and it just like makes people irritated. So communicate, talk to people, find out what the problem is and, try and solve it. Have good support systems. Like, you cannot do everything. You cannot be the director, producer, writer, AD, crew, cast coordinator. You cannot be everything. So even, of course, you cannot maybe you can't afford to have everyone, but you need to have at least 2 or 3 strong people that are supporting you on that production, because they are the ones that are going to be your eyes and ears. As for me, like, I'm, the first time I went into directing my own film and all of that, fine, I did have a bit of a producer's hat on, but I had a good production team behind me that was solving problems that I didn't even know about. So I could focus purely, on just directing. But when you don't have that, then something goes missing, something goes off. And you find that, okay, it looks great, but maybe the dialogue between these 2 characters, the scene is just not landing because you weren't paying attention, and you'll find that, you see that a lot where something is just not right in whether it's the directing of it or, whatever it is, something is not right because someone wasn't paying attention because they were distracted by something else. The director is distracted by a producer's problem, so that would be my advice. But as a young filmmaker living in Lagos, you're trying to make films, you're trying to, film, you're trying to do stuff, just do it. Find a way, film on your phone. I don't know, we're so wrapped up in getting all these big fancy cameras and we want all this big fancy equipment. And trust me, I know those guys. I know them very well. Where they want, they want the crane and they want the lights and they want this and they want that. And yeah, of course, if the story needs it, then you need it. But if you're telling a simple story that's, very intimate and just simple, you don't need all this big fancy equipment. What's important is the story. Of course, it needs to look good because we're in a time where you can't just shoot something and it's dead and people are going to be like, oh my God, I love it. No, people want quality. So I think it's important to try and find that balance between maintaining good quality, your finances, however much you're going to spend, and a good story. But that story is still key. I've seen so many films where I'm just like, what the hell? What is going on in this film? We start in the beginning, the film starts in the beginning, is great, and then, but anyway, we're going to do another episode on story. But Lagos has its unique challenges. I would just say, listen to everything that I've said. If I've missed anything, please put it in the comments, and then we'll do a part 2. Because, yeah, obviously I'm just one person. I only have the experiences that I've had. And it would be great to also speak to some other people to hear some of their own experiences. I also think it's important to keep our tradition and culture, in check when we're filming, here, like, whether it's you're filming in a Muslim community and, let's say you now have a prostitute that's walking the streets. Some of these things you need to be careful. You need to be careful about... You need to be careful with people's customs and traditions and what they respect and what they see, and there's certain scenes that might be sensitive to most Nigerians that maybe you should you should film in a different place and not keep the actor or your crew exposed to some harsh realities. People can get violent, people can get offended, and I don't think we want to do that. So I think that's also something that's really important. But yeah, this was fun. Filming in Lagos, God. We have so many stories. So many stories. Unfortunately, we can't hear them all in this episode. But make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. And yeah, comment and let me know if there's anything else you want me talking about. The next episode, we're gonna have someone really exciting. We're gonna be speaking to someone really exciting. I can't wait. Thank you. See you next time.